The podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 257 of the Today's Leader podcast. This episode, I bring you an interview with the inspirational Laura Goodrich. Now, you may recall that name from episode 247, where I provided a review of her book from 2011 called Seeing Red Cars. Now, that episode led to a bit of a chain reaction of some events, and we ended up connecting, and as a result, this interview. So Laura is doing some amazing things currently with programs like Remote Leadershift, changing leaders' mindsets, and it was exciting not just to connect, but to hear some of the incredible things that is being executed in this space. Now, Laura has authored, hosted, and produced 10 internationally distributed cinematic micro-learning programs for business and industry, and she talks quite a bit of detail in and around that micro-learning experience, which is the way the world is seemingly going. Little micro-learnings that you can apply on a day-to-day basis. She's hosted 3 television shows, a national radio program, leveraging extensive experience as an entrepreneurial technology leader and a global workforce change expert. She is always looking for innovative ways to challenge the status quo. She was recently named one of the top thought leaders by Thinkers 360. Now, some of the key messages that Laura shared during our interview. As a leader, you have to be at the front of the line, especially when faced with the rapidly changing world that the technology is bringing to us. She discusses the tipping point that we're currently facing, the reality behind changing habits, and that one will definitely surprise you, and facing the leadership challenges during these times of rapidly changing and often tumultuous change. You will certainly get some great inspiration around facing the current changes as a leader. I am absolutely humbled to welcome to the podcast Laura Goodrich.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, Travis. Finish us. Coach Cole. Good job, guys.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I've got Laura Goodrich on the Today's Leader podcast. Laura, I recently did a review around Seeing Red Cars, and that was a book way back in 2011. What's been happening since Seeing Red Cars?
Well, as I think I mentioned in the book, I've spent 2.5 decades focusing on change in the future of work and, researching kind of how the world is changing. Before I wrote the book, we produced films that were used to kick off and close meetings. Red Cars was one of them. And those did very well. They're, DVDs. and then all of a sudden they weren't doing as well.
Okay.
And I woke up in the middle of the night and I said to myself, oh my gosh, we're being disrupted. This is disruption. I don't have a DVD drive in my computer. And yet people are really accessing storytelling. Obviously, YouTube was just beginning at that point. And I went to our partners that were, bringing those products to the marketplace. And I said, I think we have to do an about face. I mean, I think we have to change entirely how we work.
Wow.
And they just looked at me like I had 8 eyes, like I was crazy. And, it was one of those things that was very difficult because some of those early partners that we had back then, even though in time they did come to recognize they needed to change, most of them didn't do it quickly enough. Most of them didn't change in the very holistic way that they needed to change. They'd tweak one thing, but they wouldn't didn't really look at their entire business model. And it was like watching car accidents happen. Really, it was, many of the In fact, most of them met their demise in that corridor.
And it would have been like a car accident in slow motion, I'm presuming,
Yes.
because even though change was happening right around the industry, there was also some of those early innovators weren't necessarily seeing the results out of
Right.
that particular change. So that would have been quite challenging. One of the things I loved about Seeing Red Cars was the toolkit that you provided for people. And, in the review that I did, I found myself going back to the time that I got your book, and I got word of your book from a guy called Dan Rockwell, who was, I'm sure he's the leadership freak, but anyway,
Yes, he is leadership freak. Yes.
I still get his emails every single day, and I love some of the generosity out of the leadership development community. But he was, and I found myself by chapter 2 willingly doing the exercises, which is what I found amazing, because usually I read a book and then I'll go back and I'll start doing things. But during your book, I found myself doing stuff as I was going through. So I suppose you would call me a coachable sort of a client, but how do you work, and what do you see now with people? So I love the toolkit out of the book. So how do you now get the same sort of response from the work that you're doing?
I think, today we even get a better response. And the reason that we do is how we pivoted as a business and really recreated ourselves. We had, started a business telling stories. My business partner is an Emmy Award-winning producer. He is very skilled and gifted in the storytelling. Yeah. And so, it's interesting because I just got back from a hiking trip in Utah, and it was over the mountains in Utah. And I don't know if you have seen them before or experienced them, that it's very red rocks, right?
Okay.
And I was flying over those mountains, and it just hit me that coaching is very effective because it's spaced over time, and you focus in a given area, and there's accountability that's a part of it. Yeah. And it's quite effective. And I thought, what if we would utilize and leverage the power of coaching and collaboration and micro-learning? So then we started to produce small bite-sized learning that would be spaced over time, and give people the opportunity to sleep on it and practice it, and a toolkit. Yeah. We've come a long way with toolkits, I'll tell you. And then the accountabilities, and that was always the piece that was difficult. So if I could get people to use a toolkit, those that use a toolkit, like you said, I mean, I would have people come back to me and just say, this is my Bible, or this is my journey right here. This is this year of leading. But then there was always the accountabilities, and I always built in, to have coaching, coach some of the coaching skills, use and practice reflective listening, do research on how the marketplace is changing, so you are aware of it. That was the really, really difficult piece that the only way that we could create those accountabilities was by way of the coaching. But now we've got a interactive technology platform where we track it. Wow. So, so when let's say you finish a micro learning, and then we ask you to practice something. When you're done, you check off the list. And so then we can have a conversation, we can see where you're at, and organizations can see exactly where everyone is at.
Yeah. And that's a really strong aspect, because people want to see that people development is a hard area traditionally to get that, what shall we call it, the return on investment, or the eyes on what's the results out of this. And while the coach and the client can often see change behaviors and et cetera, businesses are saying, well, I've paid you X amount of dollars. What's it doing for me and my business? And to have that dashboard and that toolkit to be able to say, well, this is what we've gone through. is really, I suppose, quite an innovative sort of way to look at it.
We also, if you remember the wheel where we, look at the competencies, we measure effectiveness. That's self-evaluated effectiveness at the beginning of the project and at the end of the project. Yeah. And we make commitments to the organization when we ask for commitments from the people that we work with, and we make commitments to the organization that we're going to come back to them with stories, specific stories of what people have done and what outcomes they've created. Yeah. So those are quite powerful.
Yeah.
So that it's not just professional development. It's, we're asking them to share stories of how they have innovated or changed or help others do the same.
And that's creating a culture within that particular business, one that's focused on development and innovation. So, and that's what we all need. I just spoke with a lady on the podcast, Jen Thornton, and she speaks about the propensity for business to either invest in profit or invest in people. And she says, "Trust me, we can have both." And I just love that. Yeah,
because trust me, we can have both. And as you recognize, I'm sure in your work, some are oriented to the people side of things, and some are more oriented to the task side. And, often they don't see eye to eye when in reality, they're really driving to the same thing. They're just more motivated by one angle than the other.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do businesses and organizations win today? I mean, where I know COVID still presents this dark cloud that sits over the world. And I guess coming out of that, we're going to see a fairly strong, you would imagine, economic bounce. So how do businesses win today, Laura?
There's the question of the hour. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing that businesses are doing quite well with business continuity.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, as we know, and we've all encountered countless leaders that thought it would be virtually impossible that business continuity would work when white-collar workers are all in their offices working in remote locations. And lo and behold, it's been quite effective.
And productive.
And we've always said that. We've always said that we're really productive when we're at home. We are more innovative when we are collaborating, when we are in a collaboration. Now, I will offer that I think we can collaborate from afar. We can, that there are people that are proving that out as well. So the social and emotional health of most teams are not strong now.
Yeah.
And the mental health of many team members is very challenged at this point. And that if leaders do not attend to that, and they don't shore up and sort of rebuild that social and emotional health, then they simply are not going to be prepared to change in the dynamic ways they'll have to change.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of change on the horizon. I remain and have always been and will remain positive that while this is a time of peril and there will be businesses and industries that simply do not survive it, there will be emergent industries and companies and things that may be very difficult for us to imagine right now that, if we have a conversation in a couple of years, we'll say, can you even believe it?
I can certainly share that vision in so many ways. I was speaking with a leader in Melbourne, and here in Australia, Melbourne's undertaken I think it's the world's longest lockdown. They were locked down for something like 101 days. And the feeling of and sense of isolation, the damage to the economy, it's just been a horrendous time down there for the courageous people of Melbourne who've put up with it. But I was speaking with a leader who, because as I said, the kids have been let loose to play. So the constraints have been released. And I was speaking to a leader just the other day, and he was sharing with me some of the check-ins that he'd done with his staff. And, things like I'm anxious to go outside. I'm anxious to go return to work. I'm fearful of public spaces.
Right.
And that's going to be a real shift for a lot of leaders to actually start dealing with as we start to come out of the pandemic.
And that's one of the things that I've been talking about in sessions that I've done more recently, because I think we have to pay very close attention to changing behavior. Yeah. And, we've long heard the notion that a habit is formed in 21 days. And I think most of us could say that that's really not so, because, many of us have done some really healthy things for 21 days and somehow fell off of that cart. But I think it's important that we note now it's 21 days plus 21 days plus 21 days plus 21 days. This is ongoing. And then we add what you just described and that is fear and the unknown. And so there is no question that there's going to be behavior that is forever changed. And I always say, if you ever knew anyone that went through the Great Depression, you knew that there were parts of them that were forever changed. And they were identifiable no matter where they were at or what walk of life they might have been in or even achieved. That experience forever stuck with them. And we've got some of that, I believe.
I've heard the quote often during this time, don't waste a good crisis. And I sort of relate that back to some of the leaders that I work with. And, when they've had their teams working remotely, they've had to have a conscious process to actually check in and connect and make sure they're doing well. And so much more so than what they probably do in the workplace. And so one of the real aspects that I really want to share with my leaders is very clearly, don't lose some of those practices. Those conscious check-ins on our people is just really critical, especially as we start to come out of the crisis.
Very, very insightful. When we produced our newest program, is called Remote Leadershift. And we produced that, in pandemic, which was very interesting in and of itself. And we just have worked very, very hard with it. And we built those elements in of being very purposeful in connecting, making sure that you're coming together without business continuity in mind, because we're social beings, right? We're social beings. And if our communication with those that we work with is all about checking off boxes of what we completed, and there's no conversation about our families or, a great meal that we had or the things that we talk about with in a more social context, then that part, that relational part is getting lost to the robotic. And we feel like now we're just getting the job done.
Yeah.
Not to mention the stress of people, trying to rear children at the same time and educate children at the same time.
Homeschool and keep them occupied and keep them out of the negativity of what they're seeing in the news. All of
it. Aging grandparents, aging parents, worry about them. We've got a lot of things, but we're going to get through it. We'll find our way through it. And so what do organizations need to do? They need to address it. If we operate with business as usual, and, if I hear one more time somebody saying this, we'll just go right back to the way it was. We're just going right back. You just wait. And I mean, that's a sure sign of someone who is not looking at this honestly. And it is surely a dangerous sign coming from a leader.
You just can't. One of the terms that we use quite openly here in Australia by our government was about putting the economy into hibernation and businesses going into hibernation. So let's all just have a snooze for a couple of months, and then we'll come out of this and it'll be just like it was. And it was just, I thought it was a horrendous use of a word, because that provided the wrong process for people to be thinking about this. You just can't reopen a little corner shop. You just can't reopen a restaurant.
Cannot.
There's more plans in place. There's processes, there's orders, and we've seen some really horrible decisions based on reopening. As Australia reopened, there was, we can reopen this tomorrow, and then all of a sudden we've got businesses scrambling like mad because they're not prepared for opening. So, but hibernation was just the wrong word.
Yeah, it was the wrong. And I think intuitively, I know of people that own businesses and they just, sort of went on vacation and gardened for, a couple months. And I mean, it just doesn't recreate itself. It just doesn't wake up like, it is any business, even if the industry has not been directly affected, every business is going to see. This will usher in some changes that faster, accelerate some changes, accelerate some technologies, and they will take us some effort to learn.
Yeah, very much so. Laura, who's inspired you in your leadership journey?
Oh my gosh, a million people. I mean, I just think that there are so many amazing and inspiring people. Definitely partners that we've worked with, people that we have, folks that we work, you might think to yourself, like, that it's someone in a really grand role or something. But it really comes down to individuals that are working hard to understand things and solve problems and together, and that are creative. And so, I mean, I would say that for sure. My husband and children inspire me, every single day. So it's certainly not, I guess I love the theater and I love the stage, and I wouldn't be somebody that would be on the stage. It would be people that I have the pleasure and gift of having in my life, personally and professionally.
Now, I've told you how much of an impact Seeing Red Cars had on me as my leadership career developed. What book had the biggest impact for you?
I think it's so easy to go back to Think and Grow Rich. It is one of those books where if you feel like you're faltering or things are getting, just like you don't feel like you're standing on steady ground and you need to do that. That is one that, I go back to again and again. Yeah. And it's a funny thing because a lot of times they say, people don't read your books anyway, but even, Think and Grow Rich is one of those books. And some people have told me that about mine too, is that you can open it up someplace, and just jump in and sort of grab a piece and take along. And the same holds true for, it's interesting because as a part of our programs, we create these micro learnings, and they're all story based. I'm a storyteller, and sometimes people will tell me, I mean, I had one person contact me and said that they watched one of the micro learnings every week for a year. Wow. And they just that one, and it was 3 minutes, and it was like they were going through a really hard time. And it just was something that helped them get their mind in the right place. And I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's the impact that we can have. And just interestingly, you mentioned Think and Grow Rich. I undertook a study with that once, and it was really interesting where that particular instructor started. He started on chapter 9, which is the persistence chapter. Mm-hmm. And he made us read the preface first, and not too many people read the preface of a book or a foreword of the book. And then he said, okay, we're going to start on chapter 9, and I want you to read it every night, every day for a fortnight. And so it was just really interesting. We're reading persistence every day for a fortnight, and I think that was all part of the learning that we all ultimately achieved out of that particular study process. But it was just really interesting. Let's start at chapter 9. I thought it was quite powerful. So absolutely right. So Laura, what's the vision for you going forward?
Well, let me step back before I go forward.
Okay.
In 1994, and I wrote about this in the book, and you may remember it, but I read a 4-Sunday segment piece that was called On the Cutting Edge of the Digital Age. And it described technology and life as we live it today. Yeah. At the point that the internet was in its infancy, and, telephones were phones. You talked on phones. That's all they did. And I thought to myself, I will never tire of researching this area. And I will never tire of being a keen observer of human behavior in a change environment. And maybe, just maybe, I can play a role in helping people with it.
Yeah.
So while I believe and I'm grateful that I've been able to help a lot of people over the years, I really think that this next few years are the years that I was meant to be in service to others. And that this particular time is a tipping point. And I'm going to do everything that I can to be helpful.
Excellent. Well, that's an amazing vision just in itself. I love people that have purpose. I love people that have a passion around that purpose. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I probably should have asked you? Time to jump on a soapbox, wave the Laura Goodrich flag, so to speak?
Well, I mean, like I said, we have developed tools for creating a mindset for change and working remote and transforming in that environment. That's something we have worked on for a long time and learned a lot. I mean, we started doing that, Tony, 12 years ago. Yeah. And if you can imagine how difficult it was 12 years ago with technology and adoption and all of those things. But gratefully, technology is in a great place. And interestingly enough, this time also sort of sets the table for these type of solutions. And we can help. We have the tools that we can put in the hands of leaders and organizations to maneuver a precarious time like we are, and to get people out of that fear and into that place of, playing a role in contributing to moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and once again, that's just simply powerful. If leaders aren't embracing the change, leadership is changing, the world is changing, business is changing. We've been on this technology sort of splurge of over the last, at least, when was the iPhone? 2007, I'm thinking. So over the last 20 odd years, this technology just continues to change the way that we interact, the way that we do business. And we still found businesses lagging during the crisis and suddenly realizing they need to have a website, Laura.
Right.
So some of that change process has really been lost on some people because of the reality is that they may have had a solid business built around relationships and people and, networking, referral, and I've always done it this way. And things are changing more rapidly than ever. Mm-hmm. And so as a leader, that keen observer of technology, that keen observer of people behavior is something that we all need to embrace, because it's not going to go away anytime soon, is it?
No, it isn't. It isn't. And I will, sort of end with, it is a time of peril, but it is a time of extraordinary opportunity. I mean, we've spent 2.5 decades paying very close attention, peeking around the corner, looking at these technologies and being observers. But we also have looked back at other times of revolutionary change. Yeah. And one thing holds true is that ultimately, and that is the hard part, that's the difficult part, but ultimately there is a disproportionate amount of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's going to require, this is when it's going to require we learn new things. So when I talk with groups, I'm like, if there's a new technology coming in, get to the front of the line, be at the front of the line. And if it requires you to study and practice harder than you thought you want to, do it.
Be at the front of the line. I love that. Laura, if anyone wanted to connect with you, how would they do that?
Well, I think, for sure connect with me on LinkedIn. I think that's what we should do a lot more of. And it's a surprising few number that do, but connect on LinkedIn so we can have a relationship. So you said, Tony, when you sent a note to me, I believe very strongly that every one of the connections that there should be relationship. So connect there. Our website is gwtnext.com. You can certainly take a peek there. And, if you're facing change, if you are seeing struggle with remote leadership and simultaneously worried about how you're going to transform in the ways that you need to, anything from digital transformation, that's our sweet spot. And we would love to talk and see if we might be able to help.
Excellent. Laura, I feel very humbled that I've shared some time with you today having a bit of a chat. So I wish you all the best, and I look forward to sharing your words of wisdom with the audience on the Today's Leader podcast.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, everyone.
Join the group of people impacted by seriously simple stuff to get you unstuck. The first book by Tony Coach Curl. Available at Amazon, Tony's Simple Stuff provides the tool for people to master your life and aspirations. 20% of every book sold supports Carter's cause.
Now, what did I tell you? It was humbling to speak with Laura, and really honoured that she shared time with myself for our audience. Now, what was your biggest takeaway from Laura Goodrich? Because she made so much sense, especially when she was discussing the intentionality of leaders in what we may see coming out of this COVID crisis. And I really love the comment about being at the front of the line when it comes to technology change. Because for many, the reaction time to disruption is just too slow. New technologies disrupt the market or improve efficiencies, and if you as a leader don't embrace them, others will. Maybe new entrants into your industry or your current competitors. And it's not about just blindly following whatever is new and or I guess the latest craze. It truly is about having a process where you become aware of the emerging tech and having the skill set that complements within your business that enables you to analyze it and decide whether the new tech is exactly what it is that's going to bring some benefit into your business. Remember, innovation comes from within, disruption comes from without. So a lot of this rapidly changing technology world is all designed around problems that your clients and your customers are facing. And my question has to be, are you seeing enough as a leader of your business to be able to embrace the rapidly changing world that will continue to lie ahead? And of course, in the show notes, I've got the connection, how you can connect with Laura on LinkedIn. And I've also provided the Global Work for Transformation website link. So both of those are in our show notes. And as I said, I'm completely humbled and honoured to share the thoughts of Laura on the Today's Leader podcast. In today's disruptive world, good leadership skills will always stand you in great stead. Now, if you're looking to build better leadership skills, check out the Today's Leader website at todaysleader.com. Now, our website showcases the podcast and our magazine, and we're also pleased to say that our masterminds are now available from the website. These are supported by our network sites, the Coach Curl Academy and Think and Grow Business. Today's Leader is a collective mindset for the leaders and entrepreneurs of today, forging the path of success for tomorrow. The mindset to make a difference, the ability to create an impact. Think and Grow Business hosts our Today's Leader Masterminds Think and Grow Business, where we focus on personal, professional, and business growth. Book your free 30-minute discovery call at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. We have 2 mastermind groups currently available that are kicking off in early 2021. We have the Transformative Leaders, which is really all about that C-level suite, the people running organizations, to provide you a bit of a strategic leadership outlook around being a positive influence within the communities that you serve and becoming a really positive leadership role model within your own organization. We also have the Trailblazing Leaders Roundtable, which is a fantastic opportunity for those career-orientated individuals or teams or leaders that are leading startup teams. Fantastic leadership mastermind, leadership roundtable concept that will help you develop fantastic leadership skills to build and bond with your team. Don't forget the Coach Call Academy has over 75 programs to help you build a better you. So join for just $1 for the first month. The academy that equips you and enhances your mindset, your leadership, and your business. Check it out at thecoachcallacademy.com. Don't forget, you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. Don't forget the golden rule. You know what that is. Just don't be an arsehole. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.